Hey everybody, it's Chase with AV Pop Culture again, and today we continue our spooky season focused content with a look at the top 10 horror comedies in my collection. So pop that tape in, I got you, let's go do this. All right, so horror comedies, they can be divisive. Some people don't like them. Some people don't like mixing that vibe. I kind of am a little bit picky about it myself. It just kind of depends on, it depends on the movie and what kind of movie it is. Now, what I will tell you is I am not a big fan of spoofs. And I put spoofs in their own category, so you will not see like Scary Movie in here because that's a spoof. To me, that's different than like a horror comedy, something that like has a legitimate story and isn't, spoofing stuff. So I also realized it's hard to kind of define what a horror comedy is. So I have my top 10, and remember, these are the top 10 in my collection. So there might be some that you're thinking of. I just don't have them. But I'm going to rank the top 10 in my collection. But because it was hard to define, I'm going to tell you a couple that I wanted to put in, but I ultimately left out, though I can totally argue that these have a lot of comedic elements and you could file them or classify them as horror comedy. And I am talking about Creepshow and Return of the Living Dead. So I did not put these two movies in my top 10, but I totally feel like, even the slogan on Creepshow is the most fun you'll have being scared. Like, I definitely feel the comedy vibe to it. And the same thing with Return of the Living Dead. I totally feel like this is a horror comedy. But to be fair, too, I've had both of these films on a lot of lists. So I'm going to try to spread the love, and I'm going to put these out because I just kind of went back and forth about, are they really horror comedies? Or are they just much more horror with a couple of comedy elements to them? But you can let me know what you think. I definitely, they have the comedy elements to them. Love these two movies, but we're going to leave them off of this top 10. And getting to my top 10, coming in at 10 is Frankenhooker. This movie is absolutely ridiculous. Frank Henenlotter, if you don't know the story of this, the guy's girlfriend gets killed and he is going to bring her back to life by reassembling her from the best choice parts of a bunch of different hookers. So you have Frankenhooker, and this was a cool custom slip that was made and given and sent to me so that my Blu-ray wouldn't be going naked. I used to have the talking VHS version of this movie, and I gave it away a long time ago. Kills my soul. Joe Bob Briggs Drive-In says best of 1990. This is a Blu-ray by Synapse Films. Movie's absolutely ridiculous. It has ridiculous TNA. It has crazy practical effects. It's Frank Henenlotter. So, I'm trying to remember. Was it 1990? Yeah, it was 1990. Why was I thinking that was 80s still? But 1990. And it's definitely in this like kind of shock value, crazy horror comedy. I think you got to have Frankenhooker. It comes in at number 10. This next one bridges the gap between like three genres. Definitely comedy. Definitely has horror elements, but also definitely a sci-fi film. So this is like comedy, horror, sci-fi all together right here. And I am talking about Evolution. This movie is absolutely crazy. If you have never seen this, you got Sean William Scott, you got David Duchovny, you have Julianne Moore, Orlando Jones. I love this movie. It's a lot of fun. So here you have like basically what is a meteorite crashes. You have these like things that evolve from whatever was in the meteor from outer space. So you have this evolution that's happening super duper fast. So they encounter all kinds of different creatures here. It's a lot of fun. A hell of a cast. Definitely horror, a few like light horror aspects to it. More like a sci-fi comedy with some horror elements, but I just love Evolution, and I'm a big fan of David Duchovny and whatever he's in, and this is a lot of fun, and I had to put it on the list just because I want you to check it out. This is a cool 88 Films release right here. This is not one that's so easy to get on physical media, but I love my copy of Evolution, and it makes our top 10. I love you too, little bit. I'll see you after a while. All right, coming in at number 8 on the list is probably the newest film on this list, I would say. And this actually made my list of my favorite vampire movies, much to the chagrin of a lot of people. But I am a huge Nicolas Cage fan. This is a very dark horror comedy here, a dark comedy. I am talking about Renfield. I actually enjoy seeing Nicolas Cage get to play Dracula here. This is a awesome 4K steelbook. This came from Turbine Media. Super cool release here on 4K. I love having it. But if you don't know, in this movie, Nicolas Cage plays Dracula. And Renfield is kind of like his yes man. He's kept him alive. He has to take care of him. But Renfield like has had enough. He doesn't want to do it. He goes to a self-help support group. And you know, he's trying to explain to them what's happening. They all think that the whole Dracula vampire thing is a metaphor. There's some elements to this that kind of get off track with like organized crime being involved in it a little bit, but the comedy here between them two and what happens is so much fun. And when Dracula comes into the self-help group, it is absolutely hilarious. Again, a dark comedy, a fun kind of dark comedic horror film. To that end, you could argue that Fright Night could be in here, but to me, that is a horror movie, a fun 80s horror movie with comedic elements. It's not a comedy first, I don't feel like. But Renfield, I feel like it's got a lot of comedy, horror, a lot of fun, over-the-top, crazy CGI blood and everything, but a fun, good time. The next one on the list, there's no question about. Everyone should have this movie. It's underrated, does not get talked about enough, in my opinion. And I am talking about Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. This is a fun one here. The nice edition. Ugh, man, I always hate opening them up. This is the Blu-ray steelbook here. But just super cool. Tucker and Dale. This is like a calamity of errors in this movie. They are kind of like hillbillies, I guess you would say. They have their cabin in the woods, and they keep interacting with this group of, I guess, 20-somethings, like college-age kids. And the college-age kids are like terrified of them, and because they're like scared of them and think they are bad guys, they keep running themselves into like all of these crazy scenarios, and people keep getting killed. And again, it's just like there's an old play that was made into a movie called Noises Off, and that's kind of, it's like the horror comedy version of that, like where it's just a comedy of errors. That's what it is. It's like there is no bad guy. There is like nothing. It's just these ridiculous situations keep setting themselves up because of misinterpretation, jumping to conclusions, all those kind of things. And it just makes for hilarious, but gory in places, horror comedy, absolute blast. Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. It's got to be on your list. The next one was my first one up on my 31 Days of Horror challenge because of the way it takes a fun but comedic look at horror tropes and sets up where they came from. I am talking about Cabin in the Woods. This cool old lenticular cover. I don't know if that'll show up. But, man, this movie done by Joss Whedon and I can't remember his writing partner on this, Drew Goddard. They both worked on, was it Drew Goddard? Yes. They both worked on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel together. Obviously, Joss Whedon created Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And the story is they just lock themselves in a cabin themselves, one of them upstairs, one of them downstairs, and bang this script out in like 5 days or something. And I love this movie. It has every monster that you could possibly imagine in the movie, and a government organization. It's like the down low secret is it's the government organization that Joss Whedon introduced in season 4 of Buffy that is like tasked with controlling the supernatural and monster aspect of our society, called the Initiative. They never call them that in this movie by the name, but it is basically the same thing. They are trying to control the monster population by fulfilling our ancient requirements of sacrifice to them. And that is where we get all of our horror tropes. Everything from why is everybody always get naked and have sex in a horror movie? Well, because they spray up these pheromones and make you basically into a horn dog so that you don't pay attention to what's happening around you so that you get killed. Or why does the big dumb jock act like a big dumb jock? Well, we're going to put chemicals in his beer. Why is the stoner guy act, stupid? Well, we're going to put chemicals in there. Why is there a dumb blonde? We put chemicals that affect the way she thinks, dampens her thinking and inhibitions in her hair dye. Like all of this kind of stuff, they explain it, and it's super cool. It's super clever. Lots of comedic elements, but scary, and has a lot of horror monsters in it. A lot of blood, a lot of gore, a lot of kills, but also fun and clever. Cabin in the Woods has to be on the list. All right, we are at our top 5 here, and 4 and 5 could have switched, but this one's so fresh on my mind, and I want to thank Tyler for being the silent rogue who sent me this one, because as much as I put it in like kind of like some of the worst movies in my collection, horror movies, check out that video. This is also one that for me is like in the so bad it's good category. And the more my son and I quote this to each other, the more fun it is. And you got to be some kind of a Bubba Hotep. I think it's fun. I think that it's extremely slow in the first like half or so of the movie. But the premise is so ridiculous. It's so much fun. I just think you got to have fun with the last 30 minutes of this movie. I'm a big Elvis fan, so that helps. I'm a huge Bruce Campbell fan. Now, Don Coscarelli, I'm hit or miss on. Like, I'm not as big on Phantasm as a lot of people, but I friggin' love Beastmaster. So I grew up on the Beastmaster. And the concept of this movie is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. An Elvis impersonator who is really Elvis, who's in this old folks' home, and his best friend is a black man who is convinced that he is JFK, and the CIA has hid him all these years by dyeing him black, and the two of them have to stop this mummy that fell off of a truck in Texas and got freed from its curse, and now it's feeding on people in this old folks' home and taking their souls while it's wearing a cowboy hat and cowboy boots like some kind of a Bubba Hotep. Absolutely ridiculous. You have to laugh. Enjoy it. We like saying that line back and forth to each other now. It's got some cool artwork. And I don't know, man. It's just fun and ridiculous. All right. Got 4 left. And these could be interchangeable, man. It's hard for me. It was really hard for me. I am going next with one of my favorites, not because the movie overall necessarily is a favorite, although I do really enjoy the movie, but I absolutely love Woody Harrelson as Tallahassee in Zombieland. Now, I think this movie is a super cool take on the zombie genre, and it's so much fun. It is definitely a horror comedy. It was originally conceived as a TV series, and like if you've seen the movie, you know how he has the rules that you have to live by, like cardio or double tap or whatever. Those were supposed to come out each week in the series, but they made it into a movie. You have this motley crew that gets assembled with basically a Yosemite Sam version of Woody Harrelson as Tallahassee, the Twinkie hunting, zombie killing badass. I love Twinkies. It's one of my favorite like sweet snacks ever. I think this movie is a lot of fun. I love the introduction of the rules. It has a great opening sequence. The second one is okay. It's nothing compared to the first one. Just an absolute blast for me. I love Zombieland, and I love Woody Harrelson's turn as Tallahassee in this movie. It had to be on my list. Zombieland coming in at number 4. All right, coming in at number 3 is one that you guys may question me on. But to me, this is a dark horror Christmas comedy. And I'm talking about Gremlins. Definitely funny. The lady rocketing up her ass, like shooting out of her house, dying that way on her, like chairlift. The crazy shit that the Gremlins do. It is definitely comedic, but it is dark, and it is definitely a horror. It might be light horror, but it is horror. The way people get killed, the gruesome, gross stuff that it shows, and then it's dark. The way Phoebe Cates stops and tells the story of her father slipping, breaking his neck, playing Santa Claus, coming down their chimney, and they didn't find him until later when they smelled him. And Stripe definitely goes from being, comedic to extremely dark. This is a horror comedy, and to that end, you're going to want to know about another one from Joe Dante, so just hang on. Joe Dante has his finger on the pulse of horror comedy. Gremlins comes in at number 3, top 3, and it honestly could be higher. It could be higher, but you can split hairs over this top 3 here, top 4. But coming in at number 2 is Joss Whedon striking again with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, as huge fan as I am of Joss Whedon as a writer, and Sarah Michelle Gellar, huge fan, had a crush on her. I had a crush on Christy Swanson, and then getting to know her later and talk to her and stuff like that was kind of funny. But she was the original one to play Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In this movie, I mean, it's got great vampires, it's got great comedy, it's got great action. You got Donald Sutherland in here, you got Rutger Hauer in here, you have I wanted to call him Dylan McKay. Are you kidding me? Why did I just blank on his name? Luke Perry. And I love Luke Perry. I was a big fan of him. I hate, he was in Riverdale when he passed away. You got Paul Reubens, Pee Wee Herman is in here. And I mean, it's so sad because this movie, Paul Reubens is gone, Rutger Hauer is gone, Donald Sutherland is now gone, and Luke Perry is gone. I mean, so you've lost a lot of people out of this movie, but to me, it's an absolute classic. I remember going to see it before my first day of football practice when I was like a freshman in high school, and saw it at the theater. And this movie is a blast, fun, and helped spawn the TV show that changed a lot of things out there for a lot of people, as far as badass girl heroes. You also have, what's his name in here? Mr. Courtney Cox. David Arquette is in this movie. You see a very young Ben Affleck for like a cameo in this movie before anybody knew who he was. Lots of fun, Never get tired of this movie. This was one that I was lucky to find on Blu-ray recently for almost nothing at my Barnes & Noble. Glad to have it. Buffy the Vampire Slayer comes in at number 2. That leaves number 1, and I might have tipped it off, but I got to go Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Movie is ridiculous. Beautiful 4K here, kind of maybe tips it over the top. I think as a movie, for sure, as a movie, I like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Gremlins better. But as far as like being made to be campy, fun, ridiculous, and kind of like establishing that genre, Killer Clowns is it. And it's one of the best 4Ks I've seen. Of course, the clowns come down. They're eating people. They got their cotton candy gun. They've got their circus tents. They've got pies that they throw at you that will kill you. Killer Clowns is just a hell of a lot of fun. Great 4K. It is a cult classic. Definitely as movies, I like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Gremlins better. But Killer Clowns is like when you think horror comedy, it's got to be up close to the top. It is there. And you're going to ask me why I did not put The Burbs on this list as a horror comedy. I friggin' love The Burbs. I don't have it on physical media. That's the only reason. Or it would be near the top of this list. Because I absolutely love The Burbs. But I said, to be fair, I was only going to do movies that were in my collection. I don't have it on physical media. You talk about one that needs a 4K. I am not paying $50, $60 to get the out-of-print Blu-ray with a slipcover. I just can't do that, especially on my buying freeze. But I love The Burbs. Like I said, Joe Dante has his finger on that dark, horror comedy. And I know this is like probably a divisive list, and a lot of people don't like horror comedies, or they want all the way to spoof or whatever. But you really, when you become a writer, director of these movies, of horror movies or movies in general, you realize there is not much that separates horror and comedy as far as in our brain, but also as far as how you elicit reactions from people with movies. And so they're very closely tied together. And I love horror and I love comedies. I love all kinds of movies. I'm not just a horror guy. I'm not just a horror channel. I'm not just a horror filmmaker. I love all kinds of movies. But horror comedies can be fun when you want something easy to watch. And that is my top 10 in my collection. Let me know what you think. What are some of your favorite horror comedies in your collection? If you enjoyed this, remember we are spooky season focused through the end of the month of October. But we do all kinds of things here. 4K reviews, physical media news, all of it from a fan filmmaker's perspective, rankings, lists, all that stuff, talking about all these movies, all this stuff that we love and we're so passionate about. If that is your jam, please like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. If you want to help support the channel, you can consider joining below at my Patreon link or right here on YouTube. You get your name in lights here on every single video. You get access to special members only videos, early access to some videos, a whole lot more. And I really do appreciate it. It really does help me out. Everything goes back into the channel and helps get me out of my buying freeze eventually, maybe here. But I hope you've enjoyed this. And until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.
I know.